So good evening and welcome to a very special the West Yorkshire Football Show podcast, concentrating on one of our clubs within non-league. Obviously, if you tuned in yesterday, you'll have known how excited I were and how little how I got rushed through having to talk about town and everything. So I'm joined though by, for the first time for this video cast, this podcast. It's live on YouTube. You can tune in on X or Twitter, as it was formerly known. I think we're also broadcasting on Facebook, possibly Twitch. We've got Luke Walsh from, is it the Non-League Football Show, Luke?
It's Luke Walsh Football Podcast now.
Luke Walsh Football Podcast. He mainly concentrates on doing the National League as a whole. And I'm also delighted to be joined by Talk of the Town's Matt Wiley and Sammy Maynell. So good evening to all.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Hi.
Good evening.
It's good to see us all smiling. Obviously, we're I take it we're all the same as me, all absolutely buzzing for tomorrow's game.
Very much so.
Agreed.
Was anyone else worried when we drew with Ebbsfleet and then Aldershot got literally handed all 3 points at Gateshead, though?
Yeah.
Yeah. I were as well. That was the only time that I've really thought it might just go against us. I mean, obviously we've had loads of hurdles, a lot of adversary with the ground, that with the issues that we've had with the pitch. Have you all managed to? How many of the games have we all managed to attend away from the Shea?
I got to all of them.
Yeah.
So I'm based down south, unfortunately, so I couldn't get to any of them. I've not been great with home games, but I've been more London away days. Have been.
I only managed to get to the Ebbsfleet game in our home away from home, and I'd say in that game, if that was any indication of what we've been like in those 3 games, we really tried to win that game, against Ebbsfleet, and I think Millington made all the right substitutions. Everything we're doing at the minute, I don't know how other people feel. Do you just feel everything's going sort of right at the moment? We're obviously having a lot of media being put out at the minute. The Courier's put up an article. So anyone else got any thoughts on that? Don't all jump in at the same time.
That's the trouble with online stuff, isn't it? No one wants to speak in case it's just chaos.
Yeah, we end up talking over one another when we do, when we're discussing the clubs, usually on our Monday roundup. But I'll draw your attention to Chris Millington's attitude, almost like he's obviously been questioned about what about this, what about that. We've been playing away from home. We've obviously had the insanity of the playoffs, ending. Gateshead can't play in it. It's something we obviously covered last night on the show. It's then Solihull were there. Now it's Altrincham. We're playing Wednesday. Then we have to play Saturday. Chris Millington, through it all, just seems to be keeping a very, very cool head.
I think just in my opinion overall, I just think dealing with the whole situation, I think we're quite well equipped to deal with this, considering what's happened over the last week where we've had to play away from home. I think we've done very well under the circumstances to finish inside a playoff position, and I think no matter what happens, I think we've got to be just proud of the team this season, because a lot of people have written them off. They've also written off Millington as well. He's got a lot of criticism over the past couple of seasons, and I have to admit, this time last season, maybe a little bit before that, I was one of the fans who were thinking potentially we should be looking to move on and find a new manager, yet the board have stuck with him, and I think overall he's done a very good job. And I'm just going back to me saying that I think we're quite well equipped, and I think going into these playoffs now, we're used to dealing with adversity. Yes, we're playing Altrincham, now we're playing Solihull. To be honest, I think with what's happened recently, I think we're in a very good position going into this game, and probably the best position we could be in, to be honest.
I agree with that. I think that's a really fair assessment. Yeah, a lot of the criticism is levelled at Millington. I think it seems to me there's quite a lot of short-termism amongst the fans when they were calling for his head. When we had that bad trot in January, there was quite a lot, things need to change, and does that involve the manager? And I think now in a situation like that, you stick by him, and he's absolutely responded well. The team have responded well, and I do feel like we're in a good spot going in.
Yeah, I think as well, the fact that we've played so many games in such a short space of time. I think we all thought, oh God, they're all going to be knackered. But I mean, me and Matthew were down at Eastleigh at the weekend, and I said to you, didn't I? That's probably one of the best performances I've seen all season. Like I
Agreed.
thought it would
Yeah.
be. I thought it was going to be painful. I thought it was going to end in heartbreak. I'm not going to lie. So it just goes to show the absolute, resilience of this group of players. And, we don't have the biggest budget in the league, but the players that we've got, they're determined, and we've seen that. So, yeah, I think people probably would have preferred maybe to play Altrincham. I don't know. I mean, we've played him enough times this season. I'm sick of the sight of him, quite frankly. So I say, we just take Solihull Moors in our stride. We managed to get a point at their place earlier in the season, so why not go all the way and get 3 points this time? Well, not 3 points, but you know what I mean, a win.
Just my thoughts as well on Eastleigh. I think I kind of agree with what you're saying there. Of course, like going down to Eastleigh on the final day of the season under the circumstances, I thought even if we did manage to get over the line, I thought it was going to be an awful 90 minutes where I'm feeling sick for the full 90 minutes in nerves, but the team's done very, very well, I think, to, win like we did in such a style. It was such a professional performance. And I think, as you two were there as well, I think you could probably agree that we could have potentially won by more as well.
Massively won, definitely. Easily got another couple. And to keep Eastleigh quiet as well, I think, obviously, the defence has always been our strength this year. How settled the defence has been. But that was a real show of, look what we can do at the other end. And, people like Aidan George scoring for the second game in a row. He's coming into his own at just the right time. Having Jamie Cook back. Max Wright's hit a bit of form in April as well. I think it all really bodes really, really well.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it was our biggest win margin of the season, 3-0. So, I mean, what a way to end the league campaign at least. So I think we're in a good position, and who knows, could this be the year that we actually do it? I certainly hope so. The amount of money I've spent trekking up and down this country to watch them, I guess we'll just have to see. And even if it's not to be tomorrow, like I think it's such an achievement. I think, like you were saying, Luke, people were writing us off, I think, earlier in the season, and we've persevered and we've made it this far. So I certainly didn't think that we'd make the playoffs. I know we've been in and out of it for a while, but I feel like we were going to fall short of it. But I don't know if something's happened, and the players are playing. So yeah, it's exciting.
I personally feel now going into this game, we're probably in the strongest position that we've been in all season, particularly what we've had to deal with. Yeah, too many players that are out injured, or players that I feel that, I think it's harsh to say this, but we've got cover in those positions. For example, yes, I'd like to see Capello back, but I think we've got enough cover in those positions for me. We're not missing a Hottie, we're not missing a Summerfield or a Thompson Sommers going into this game. We've got a full squad. So for me, I'm fairly confident. And I think what feels different compared to last time we were in the playoffs, all the pressure was on us going into that game v Chesterfield. We're kind of in where Chesterfield's position were. This time we come in and I have no expectation whatsoever in these playoffs because we've finished 7th. If you actually think about it, Southend should have finished 7th. It's only because of the points deduction that they don't. So for me, I see it as a free hit. Of course, that doesn't mean that we should be going into these playoffs and just say we've done a job now, which I don't think the team will do by any stretch of the imagination. But for me, I just go in and I just think there's no pressure. I've kind of prepared myself that we're going to lose at some point, which I think is going to benefit us overall. And I think the team will go in, with no fear. That's just my opinion on going into these games.
No, I agree with that. And I think you have to look at someone like York a couple of years ago in the Conference North. They finished 7th in the playoffs, didn't they? Won 3 away games on the bounce and went up. So, yeah, there's that complete lack of any expectation, any pressure really can pay off. And if you look at a team like Solihull, they've got a much bigger budget than us. They've been hovering around the top end of the league for quite a while. If you're talking about expectation, it should be on them. And we're just there to hopefully cause a bit of an upset.
It's interesting to note on all the polls that I've seen running on social media, we are always, in fact, on one of them, we didn't even get a mention. It was like, who's going to win I saw an X poll earlier, or who in your opinion is going to win it? And not one person other than one town fan said, Halifax. And I love that. I absolutely love that because I'd rather it be that way. I really would, because like you're saying, all the pressure's kind of off. Really, the big thing is that nobody in seventh has ever won these playoffs. The lowest that somebody's won it from is Grimsby. They won it in sixth. Was it the season we sort of capitulated? I think we finished fourth, and Grimsby seemed to come out of nowhere and managed to get in the playoffs. A couple of years ago,
was that when they went to Wrexham and won? Was that?
Yeah, the 5-4 year. Yeah, that was the year that we
blimey.
were. I think the Grimsby Wrexham one must have been. That's it. Grimsby beat Notts County late on. Well, Manny Desu Uware, who we had last season, he scored late on away at Notts County, and he did it again at the racecourse, and that's how they got to Wembley. Yeah. Whereas obviously we lost to Chesterfield, and then it was Chesterfield against Solihull. Funnily enough,
it's always the same teams, isn't it? This is what it's like. There's these teams that there's constantly there's pressure on them to get there, and I think obviously that probably feeds more into the 2 up, 2 down. It should be 3 up, 3 down. You know, we're not here to discuss that, but it should be. But the amount that these teams are constantly, you know, before the season starts, you think, oh, these teams will be up there, so there's more pressure on them. And for us, we've overachieved. Let's just have a shot at it, like you said, Luke, a free hit. Let's have a go and see where we come out.
We are in a very, very strange position because traditionally, actually, out of the 5 that are left, we are almost the inverted commas biggest club. I mean, you could argue Barnet would be up there, but Barnet, I'm talking about like stuff that's happened from years ago. Like we were in the Football League for 78 years. Barnet are almost like what we're seeing maybe a Burton or a Fleetwood. Now they did like 20 solid years in the Football League before the yo-yoed. It's a strange position to be in that we are traditionally the biggest club in this playoff, but we're actually the least favourites to win it.
I think in a way what's kind of good going into these playoffs is like, although we are the biggest club, and I'd probably, maybe I'm being biased, I think it's probably alongside us and Barnet, because you could say we get higher attendances, but overall, you know, Bromley now get higher attendances than us overall. I think, and Altrincham as well. I think it's based on the history. I think it's been between us and Barnet. But for me, what's good is there's no, I think, huge like fish, if that makes sense, going into these playoffs. You know, I'm glad in a way they didn't Oldham, even though I don't think Oldham were good enough to go up. It's kind of nice not to have a club like that, because no matter what happens, one of these clubs, it's likely to be probably about 3/4 of the playoffs opportunity, sides competing in the playoffs to get into the Football League for the first time. Maybe you'd include us. I know I like to think we're the same club as what we were before we reformed. But also for your Halifax, it means so much. It's kind of the one thing that's missing with this football club is getting back to the Football League since we've reformed. Because I think overall, I know there's things that we probably disagree with about how the club operates and stuff, but overall it's been successful since we've reformed to do what we've done and get back to the National League so quickly as well. And that final step is now to get back into the Football League, because that is basically where we've spent the majority of our history, and I think it is probably where we belong as a football club to be in League Two. So it just means so much if we could finally do it this season and get there.
I think a lot's changed in football since David Bosworth officially took control back in 2008. I mean, we'd have been relegated out with a conference that, you know, Burton Albion won, and they weren't really like your old. We wouldn't have had like Oldham, even Wrexham weren't there. You know, we didn't have any real big ex-Football League clubs dropping into that level. They weren't Salford coming up with like a class of 92, just funding them through the leagues. Like the landscape's changed so much. And I mean, you could even argue, you know, stuff like the COVID seasons are just, there's been a lot of obstacles there that I don't think David Bosworth, and obviously he went into it with Bobby Ham and Stuart Peacock. I think there's been a lot of obstacles that they didn't anticipate, and I'm sure other clubs obviously would argue the same. Like we don't know what's coming up, but I think the club thought that the conference wouldn't change that much between us being demoted 3 leagues and getting back. You know, it's changed a heck of a lot, but every division has. You know, the money that's awash in the Premier League's changed what the Championship is. And obviously we only have to see what's happening in the FA Cup to see where priorities are changing for the bigger up clubs. I mean, we're starting to veer away a little bit from his own club, but the football landscape has changed immensely since David Bosworth first took over. Have we moved with the times? I don't know. Not most people would argue, probably not. to be honest. But we're here. We're 7th on merit. We've done it.
Yeah.
You know, we've gained enough points to finish 7th. As you say, Luke, as we've all said, you know, not Oldham, sorry, Southend, without the -10 would have got in there. But we had -10 taken off the season that we were liquidated, and we still stopped up. You know, it's another hurdle that a club's had to overcome. There's been a fair amount of obstacles this season. It seems like Chesterfield have actually just cruised to the title, worthy winners, etc. But yeah, every team's faced a little bit of adversary this season, and every team that's in the playoffs actually deserves to be there. I mean, every team's got dangerous players. I mean, I said it briefly on our roundup show yesterday. I'm sure you'll agree. If we turn up in these playoffs, I don't think there'll be anyone really to stop us. If Andrew Olawabore and everybody clicks, as we say, we're great in defence. We really are, not the team to beat, but we're going to be very, very tough to beat.
We're not a nice team to play, I don't think, for oppositions. I think opposition think Halifax and they go, oh, no, it's Halifax, which is a good thing. It's not particularly that we play the nicest football, which I do think we have got in a locker. At Eastleigh, it was displayed. You know, we dominated that game and we played them off the park, in my opinion. But what our game is basically build from the defence, low block, and we're very hard to break down, which will frustrate the opposition. And that will benefit us playing away from home for me, because Solihull will probably want to keep a lot of the ball, but they won't be able to, hopefully, they won't be able to break us down. And that allows players like Andy going forward and Max Wright to, you know, have that space to be able to counter-attack. And for me, I just think we're in a very good position going into these playoffs. And like I said, I think there's a massive, massive opportunity there this season for us. And probably all the other clubs will say that as well. You know, Altrincham, they'll say, you know, the squad that they've got this season, how well they've done with them having a bye as well. I'll probably come into this thinking, you know, this is probably the best opportunity we're going to get for a long time. Barnet will think the same. I think if you were to say there's a team to beat, I think you'd probably say Barnet are going to be the team to beat because they finished second. And I think they are overall a very good team as well, and probably the best team if everyone did turn up on the day for me. But for me, I think any of those sides in the playoffs, you know, you could put a case together why they could go up. So I think you could literally pick a name out of a hat, and that's who's going to get promoted. To be honest, it's that wide open for me.
I think you've already just sorry, Matt. Go on.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think you're right there, Luke, with the idea that we're tough to break down. If you talk about Barnet being the favourite, and I'd agree with you on the team to beat. Obviously, if you look at the league game where we went down there in September, you know, that was no appeal, and we could have won it were it not for a missed penalty. It's like we are that kind of really solid in defence. I know we were playing 3 at the back at that point. Transition to 2 centre-backs then, but still, you know, with the fact that we went down there, they were previously 100% at home all season, and we kept a clean sheet. Now, I do wonder, a lot of it is down to the defence and the low and the tactics that we play and why that suits us playing away home. But I would say I don't want to let this get to 20 minutes without hearing Sam Johnson's name mentioned. Just the best, for me, the best goalkeeper in the league, and has been for a number of years. And I want to say my dad, who's probably the most mild-mannered bloke you'll meet, barely ever gets into online rows, actually had a pop at Adam Virgo last season for refusing to mention him in his team of the season. And I just think that's right. He's got to be given more credit than he gets.
Yeah, that's Golden Glove winner last season, Sam Johnson, by the way. 2 in a row now.
Yeah,
I mean, I know it was shared jointly with O'Donnell at Eastleigh last season, but yeah. He's the worst kept secret in National League football, and I think it's the one thing we haven't just quite touched on in this show yet. Should this go to penalties, they might as well just put us into the next round, or they might as well just promote us.
The kiss of death.
Yeah, I know. It's up to our players. Honestly, I really think it's up to our players to score the goals. I think Sam Johnson will do his job in between the sticks, and I mean.
Either that, or we just have it at our end, and we just give the net a bit of a shake again, like we did.
Let's not get into that.
Get your flares out, throw them on pitch.
Because obviously, the only way we're going to play the team that would be aggrieved by that would be at Wembley Stadium, and there's a massive cage thing in there that keeps you like you can't. You must be about 20 feet from the net.
As well, so.
I mean, should we go up into League Two, the first game of the season would be Sam Johnson's 400th. He'd run out as, I would imagine, captain of FC Halifax Town. and he'd be a League Two player for his 400th appearance. So there's little things as well happening in the background where we can sort of maybe feel stars starting to align. It'd be absolutely what he deserves. I think he's easily the most decorated goalkeeper we've ever had. 2 FA trophies. He's obviously got a playoff win under his belt. He's experienced playoff with Town. We've actually done everything in the playoffs other than win a playoff eliminator as well. We've obviously won semi-finals to get to finals. We've lost finals. We've won finals. This is the one tie we haven't won yet because we've, of course, lost to Boreham Wood and we lost to Chesterfield the season before last. So this is another first for the club, shall we say.
I've just had a thought there. Boreham Wood and Chesterfield. Now, I could be wrong, but were both the winners in those games scored by former players? I can't remember Boreham Wood, but I feel like it was. And then obviously Jeff King scored. Jeff
King scored the winner for Chesterfield, didn't he? And the first one was scored by Danny Rowe.
Was it Mandeville should have been sent off as well?
I think the Boreham Wood game, it's weird how I would call it, to be honest. But I know there was Matt Reed scored because it was a bit unfair that he was actually playing because he wasn't signed on with them until I think March time. I think COVID happened. So
it was a late signing,
Yeah, it was like his 4th game for Boreham Wood, so it felt a bit unfair. And then I think it was like that Stiff, I think, scored, who were a bit of a club legend for Boreham Wood in that game. But yeah, for me, I think it's a massive opportunity this game. And I feel more confident and less nervous than I have done in any of the playoffs that we've been in. And I can probably remember 3 playoff campaigns, the one that we won when we got back in to the National League and then the 2 that we've lost. For those 3 games, I was nervous and bricking it going into all 3 of those playoff campaigns, where this time I'm coming in and maybe, I don't know, it's because of that experience of being in playoffs before, but I just have the opinion that I've got no nerves going into this and I don't particularly fear anyone. That might change when the whistle's blown there tomorrow night.
I mean, you did your podcast last night, Luke, nearly 2 hours, and you obviously hosted or you presented it, and we had opposition's viewpoints. I mean, what are their thoughts going into it?
So of course I spoke to I think every fan from different clubs that we're in, and I think the majority of them, the Bromley fans seem quite confident going into this, and they've all kind of said similar to what we're saying. They all say on a day we can beat anybody, and I think it does feel like a lot of them have been saying that, you know, on a day we can beat anybody. There's no big fish in this competition now, so there's a massive opportunity for one of us to go up. You know, Altrincham, I think everyone agreed that Altrincham probably play the nicest style of football going into this playoffs, which is the nicest on the eye, which I would probably agree with overall. I don't personally think that means anything in the grand scheme of things if you actually think of sides that have got promoted before. I think everyone's agreed that Barnet are probably going to be the team to beat, and I asked them, like, who do you fear in the playoffs? And most people said Barnet. The Solihull fans actually said they don't like the thought of playing us going into this game. They think it's going to be a very tight game. When I spoke to the Solihull fan, he wasn't actually too confident going into this game, which was a little strange, but I think he's probably just very nervous going into this. But he just says Halifax is not a team that kind of suits us, and I'd probably agree with that, and especially if we had to play Altrincham in the final, I think that's another opportunity there. I think that's kind of why I'm upset a little bit that we're not playing Altrincham now, because I think if we went to Altrincham away, I'm sick of playing them, and yes, they'll be wanting to get revenge after what happened in the FA Trophy last year, and the only way they could equal that is probably by beating us in a playoff campaign. But I just feel the way we play, they play right into our hands, I should say. So for me, I think Altrincham are a side that I want to be playing in the playoffs, and I know most people go in, apart from the Barnet fans, have gone in thinking that I'm not Halifax in particular a side I want to play. However, like I've said, the Barnet fan actually said that, to be honest, at home, I think I'd rather have Solihull, and that's probably because, you know, Solihull away from home are very good like us, and I think the only team, them and Chesterfield, that are better than us away from home.
I think you never want to play a team, to be honest. I think playing nice football in a playoff almost is a bit of a disadvantage, because playoff games and games when there's a lot riding on them generally are usually really, really rubbish games of football. Like you think like, when was the last time you saw a good final, like a good quality final and they're always so cagey, they're always nobody really wants to commit forward too much. You know, the FA Trophy final last year
I
was
was just going to say.
dreadful game of football, wasn't it? I mean, beautiful result, dreadful 90 minutes. But I think that plays into our hands. Like you said, Luke, I would quite like to play Altrincham because if it gets to that point where it is cagey and you have to really, you know, fight your corner and be that kind of physical, almost nasty team to play against, that suits us more than it suits them. So, yeah, I would agree with that, yeah.
Whenever the heat's been turned up on Chris Millington, and obviously we've touched on it earlier, he's always pulled something out of the bag, or his teams have always reacted and responded. And I'd say that we're going through that now, obviously, with the adversity of having to play away from home. We're going to have played, 7 or 8 away games in a row, should we go all the way. You know, the pressure's on now in the playoffs, and when we've needed to, obviously we hit bottom of the league under Chris Millington, and you know, times were hard, and we pulled a run out of there, and then obviously we had another dip and etc. You know, it's just, there's just something in the back of my mind that, I mean, I were absolutely buzzing last night. Like, you could not stop me on our section last night. Like, I was like, we are going to go up. If we turn up, we are going to get promoted. But at the flip, if we're playing 5 at the back and try to break people down in midfield and just spoil, I think we will not do it. We're either going to do it or we're going to go out with a whimper. And I don't think we'll go out with a whimper. I really don't.
You just don't know, do you? Because
No, it's so...
I'm the same. Like, I just think the way that we played against, like, Barnet, for example, it was pretty bad. Like, it was nothing to write home about. I think it was very much, once final whistle blew, it was just like, right, let's just forget that ever happened and move on. But then the way we played against Eastleigh was just so different. And it's like, yes, they can pull it out of the bag sometimes, but at the same time, you don't know what you're going to get when you turn up. So I think it's just very much a case of, I don't want to put too much on it just in case it is disappointing, but I think the potential's there. I just really hope that they take that chance and do what needs to be done.
I agree with you there, Sammy, because I think what concerns me, and I don't want to be negative because I think going into these playoffs we need to be quite optimistic, but we have got that in our locker to have that, you know, awful performance. For example, Barnet, we just didn't. It wasn't even a case of me thinking we didn't actually turn up. I think I think in the last couple of games, I'd even include the Eastleigh game to a certain extent. I don't know if you'd agree, but we're not starting games well. The first 10 minutes, we're not starting them well. Oldham, although we got a point, we probably should have won that game. We didn't actually start it well. Ebbsfleet, I don't think we started it well. Even you might even go as far back and say potentially Kidderminster away. I thought for the first half and probably for 60 minutes, we defended well, but we weren't particularly playing well. And what concerns me is if, let's say, we're going to Solihull tomorrow night and we don't start the first 15 minutes well and they capitalise and go 1-0 up, for me, a side like Solihull, that's where I can't see us coming back. It's different against other teams, but Solihull will then do what we do, which is probably what they do best, is defend well and catch us on the break. And for me, I just think they'd end up probably comfortably beating us like 1-2-0 for me. So that's my only concern, is I hope that we start the game well and we don't concede early.
Yeah,
Andrew Oliver. Oh, sorry, go on, Sammy.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I agree with that, and I know that when we played Solihull Moors at home, I know that game got postponed as well, didn't it? That was just the start of the terrible pitch situation. But I wasn't at the game, but I was getting updates from my dad, and he was just saying this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, we're just not getting into it. They're just, you know, they're running rings around us. And what I don't want is a repeat of that. But I know I wasn't there, but from what I heard, it was not good. So, yeah, I just, like you say, Luke, I think we really need to just 100% from the beginning get an early goal rather than just leaving it to the second half like we have done so many times this season. Because, I mean, it's not good for anyone's blood pressure and our hopes of making it all the way to the finals. So, yeah.
Andrew Waller-Wabori goes into the game having, you know, done 3 assists down at Eastleigh, and he's been used sparingly by Chris Millington. I mean, he came on against Ebbsfleet and he frustrated me, but I mean, on another day he'd have shot and scored when he was taking 3 and 4 and 5 men on and, you know, putting them wide, but he assisted all 3 goals. I mean, albeit one of them was a shot, the second one that fell to, was it Cook? Yeah. Did Cook get the second one where he had a shot, didn't he, Oluwabori, and it span out to like the right-hand side, and I think it was Cook that fired across the goalkeeper. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Cook, we've been talking about we've got a fully fit squad. Jamie Cook's had his injury problems this year. I mean, we could talk all night about the injury problems we've had this season, but we've also, and he came on for 3 minutes at Saturday, we've got Festus Arthur back. Should he be needed, we can call on him, and it's not as if he's just come back from injury. He's been out at Southport. I know that it was highly rated by a lot of their supporters. I think he scored 1 or 2 goals. So yeah, like you said, just going back to it, we've got a fully fit squad to choose from, and we, whether intentionally or unintentionally, had the luxury of resting Rob Harker against Eastleigh or not using him, if you want to put it another way.
I think it's just a bit unknown, to be honest, to be going into a playoff campaign where it feels like everything's in the right place to a certain extent. I know, like, we've had to change grounds. We're having to go to Solihull instead of Altrincham, but every other side that's going to have affected Solihull as well. They thought they were playing Gateshead, now they're playing Halifax. Gateshead and Halifax are 2 bipolar opposite type of teams, so it'll have affected their prep to a certain extent going into this game. But for us to have a full squad, a more or less full squad to choose from, where, it is literally, you could play who you want. Everyone will have their different, sides, but also we've got players who'd come on as well. For example, Harker probably suited that Oldham game more than what Jamie Cook probably would have suited it. So you'd play Harker in that game, yet Eastleigh away, Cook executed what he had to do very well because he presses them high up the field, which automatically means the other forwards will press as well. So for me, I think Millington, he's kind of got too much of a choice, to be honest, to a certain extent. He could literally pick who he wants, and it's kind of unlike us to be going into a playoff campaign like this. For example, when we played Chesterfield and lost to them 2 seasons ago now, Ian Spence was injured like an hour before kickoff, and when that happened and Gilmore came in, that I think I just thought that's going to kill us, that going into this game. Green had been injured, same as Summerfield. They've both been injured. We weren't going into the playoffs on particularly good form. We just conceded late to Aldershot. And I think after that, after we'd drawn to them, that took us out of the top 3, which was ironically to Solihull. Then we had to go to Stockport and actually win, and we didn't. So going into the playoffs, we weren't going in on form. Summerfield and Green was in and out of the team due to injuries. They both started, but they both looked very, very lethargic, and that seemed to be a pattern throughout the whole team as well. And I've spoke to Wild since, and he basically just said that they've basically just run out of legs going into that game. The difference is this season, although we haven't probably performed as consistently good as that throughout the season, we're going in. We're a full fit squad. Yes, we played a lot of games, but I think the squad looks healthy. It looks ready. So for me, I'm pretty confident going into these playoff campaigns, to be honest.
Yeah, you've touched on something there, Luke, that that I've not really considered. We actually go into these playoffs on a pretty decent run of form, whereas when we were in them before, we almost limped in like it was. What's the expression? I can't just think what it is, but it's like we were almost guaranteed third. Like we just seemed to just lose it at the last minute, obviously through his own form. And I mean, crazily in that year, I know it were pretty unlikely. I think until the second to last game, we actually could still win the title. Stockport, I think, played Torquay at home on a Tuesday night, which meant we couldn't catch them. There would have even been a situation where we could have been going to Stockport County, and if other results had gone that way, that could have been a title decider.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds, we ended up finishing 4th, and obviously, like you say, it was a bit of a flat. We sort of went into the playoffs a bit flat, and I don't think Waters had really been scoring that much. I know he broke the 20-goal season mark, first player to do it since Lee Gregory, which would have been like 8 seasons before then. And yeah, everything. I was on Radio Leeds in the build-up to the Chesterfield game, and they sort of said, "What do you think we'll do?" And I said, "I think we'll win his home game because we've been good at home. I think we will beat Chesterfield, but I think we'll struggle against Solihull away. Whereas this year, I honestly think it's not ours to lose. We're going around in circles a little bit, but it's not ours to lose. But I think if we turn up, we will win this. We will win this. We played 6 games away from home to win the FA Trophy last year. I know that's the luck of the draw, but we did it. Okay, some of the teams were lower league teams. We had to win on penalties, but we've got a goalkeeper that's 6'8". You know, not necessarily that we played for penalties, but it's something that we've got in the locker. Like, I don't know, like Solihull have got Mark Beck up front. I think if we'd have had Mark Beck in the last 5 years, we'd have got in the playoffs every year. I think he's just I just think he's everything that we need or needed until we got Rob Parker. Parker could become like Mark Beck.
Were we rumoured to sign Beck, I believe?
We've been rumoured to sign a lot of people over the years that have been strikers of that sort of calibre. Apparently 10 years ago, we had John Akinde. The rumour was, the stipulation was, if a full-time club comes in for you, you can consider your part-time contract with us void. And Barnet came in for him and they won the league that season. I think Mark Beck's always been on our radar. I think we practically had Jamie Osborne signed 10 years ago from Hednesford. He's obviously a major player for Solihull as well. But I think I think every team could argue that we've probably signed players where you'll have supporters of other teams that would be on podcasts and say we had, for example, I don't know, we had Millie Ali all but signed up and then he went to Halifax. I think it's just swings and roundabouts. That's just how it is, especially at non-league, because most of the time Northwest clubs are going to fish in Northwest waters, and London clubs would probably all be looking for like academy players that have fallen out of Premier League teams. There's obviously quite a few to go at. You know, that these catchment areas, that's what I was after. Most teams fish in the same sort of ponds. You know, we'd have got John Akinde from Alfreton who slipped out of the playoffs 10 years ago. And, you know, yeah, but it's just water under the bridge. You know, he's at Colchester now. They're only just going to stay up in League Two this year, but he's 10 years older than when we were going to sign him. I mean, every team has the danger men. That's why we're all there. That's why we've all done really well this season. Barnet have got Kabamba, among others. You know, Solihull have got Mark Beck, Jamie Osborne. I'm sure they've got a couple of good defenders. I think they've got a really good goalkeeper. We all know what Matt Warburton can do. I mean, I know he's had he had a bit of a stop-start season. I sort of lost track of what Warburton were doing this year. I'm sure he's been injured for a period, but I'm not quite sure what's going on with him. You know, Altrincham have got Con Clark, again, amongst others. You know, they sing the praises of all their players. Bromley aren't really on our radar until the final, but they've got Michael Cheek. You know, he's always been up near the top of the goal scoring charts. We go in with our top scorer with 9 goals, which, as you say, just shows how important being organised at the back is. I mean, Jamie Stott's played every second of this season. He's played all 46 league games alongside Sam Johnson. Those two have been ever present. You know, Tyler Golden more often than not does 90 minutes. We've got a settled back four, injuries permitting. Obviously, we've lost Ryan Galvin. That's one man we haven't spoken about. It appears as if he won't feature in these playoffs, but we've got somebody that can fill in there in Jack Evans. Let's just hope it isn't. Let's just hope it isn't down that side that we get punished. Because I've still got nightmares of Hereford when we had 2 injuries in the playoff final. And they scored 2 goals down that side, and there was a cross-come shot that won it. And I don't care what he says, it weren't a shot. He was crossing that into the box, and it managed to beat John Kennedy. That were a real sad day, and hopefully it's one that we won't see this time.
I know my dad talked about that when he went there, losing the final. But Samuel, I'm just going to ask you one thing. Obviously, like, we've had 2 playoff campaigns. I think 2 in the last 5 years. Is it? I think it is overall. In the this will be our 3rd, I think, in the last 5. Will it? I think it will. If I've done my maths correct.
I'm losing track, Luke.
Yeah.
We've certainly been in and around them for the last 5 years, haven't we? 1920 in COVID, we were there. 21-22, when it were mostly locked down, we just missed out. Then we got in there. Then it were last season, and now this season. Yeah, you know what I mean? We've been in and around them for 3-4 out of 5.
So I'm just going to, Sammy, obviously, I think this will be our worst position that we've been in going into a playoff campaign. In those playoff, I think the COVID, when it kind of split up for COVID, we finished 6th. The last, obviously, there were season we finished 4th. Are you more confident going into this than you were going into those 2, or would you say less confident? How are you feeling going into it?
It's tricky. I never want to feel too confident because it just comes back to bite you, doesn't it? But I think the fact that I've actually I went to all of the games last week, so I've seen how we are. Whereas, the other seasons I wasn't really going as much. But since me and Matthew started the podcast this year, I've been making the trips back home because I'm in Manchester at the moment. So I've been making the trips back home to go and watch them. And I think actually seeing what's happening on the pitch in that run up, I wouldn't necessarily say I feel more confident, but I know what we're capable of. And I think what I saw particularly on Saturday was very positive. And like I was saying before, I was worried that we would just be completely knackered. Like Max Wright put a shift in the other day, and then for him to on Saturday then come back and sort of pick up from where he left off, essentially, like that was reassuring, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm confident because Solihull Moors aren't exactly, the easiest team in the world to play against. But I think we've definitely got a chance. I can't see any reason why we wouldn't give ourselves a good chance of winning. But, you just don't know, do you? You really don't know.
No, I think you've put that a little bit better than what I did. I think I know what we're capable of, and I think that's what I was trying to say. If we produce what I know we're capable of, we'll be a very, very tough team to beat.
I think it frustrates me though, because me and Matthew have discussed this before. When we went through that period sort of around the winter time where we were just on a bad run of form, losing loads of games, it just kind of annoyed me that then all of a sudden we managed to turn it around and Oliver Bory starts scoring out of nowhere, and Cosgrave starts looking like a better player than he was. And it was just like, why could we not have done that before? Because we could have really easily avoided this whole like having to fight to the last game of the season to make the playoffs. Like we could have been, we could have been up there. We could have been even, third. It's just annoying that we've had that potential the whole time, and it's taken sort of so long for it to be consistently unlocked. And this is what I mean. It's like we know it's there. Sometimes they just don't show up, and I just really hope that that's not the case tomorrow, because we've worked so hard to get here, and it would be just amazing if we were to win.
It certainly would. I just think going into tomorrow, like, the one thing that I don't want is going in and like you said, not turning up and thinking, we've missed, and going afterwards thinking, what, Solihull were actually beatable there. If Solihull are just a better team on the day, then you can kind of get over it to a certain extent and just think, what, even if we beat Solihull because they were the better team, we probably weren't going to get past Barnet. But I think just for me, going back to what you were saying about why haven't we played like that throughout the whole season, I can agree, because over the course of the season, it feels like we've got better and better to a certain extent. At the start of the season, we were grinding out results, Rochdale away, Bromley at home. They weren't like, I think, entertaining games. I'm not saying that we're the most entertaining team now, but there is that entertainment there. Oliver Bory at the start of the season, for me, a lot of people were saying he's out of his depth and giving him a lot of criticism. But I think what might have benefited us is Millie Ali, of course, leaving has kind of given it. I personally thought when he was there, we were quite one-dimensional. We relied on him for goals. And I think a lot of our fans, including myself to a certain extent, thought when he'd left, that's our season done now. We didn't know where the goals were going to come from. Then, of course, players like Max Wright have come out of nowhere and started getting goals. Oliver Bory, he's not the most prolific, although he scored a few. He's a setting up goals as well. And I think players from all around the pitch, for me, are coming in and getting their goals. And what's good about a playoff campaign to a certain extent is we're not going into playoffs knowing that we need to be scoring loads of goals. We don't need to be actually winning games if that makes sense. We're basically going in, and it could go to penalties, it could go to extra time. Solihull are the side with all the pressure on them being the home side, because the longer the game goes on, the more confident I feel for Halifax that we'll be able to get through. That's just my opinion anyway.
I mean, I've seen us play every playoff campaign we've ever had, because we didn't start until 2005, 2006. And other than that playoff final, I think, honestly, and I really think it's in my unbiased opinion, Town have tended to get what they deserve out of the playoffs. Like, we didn't have another playoff campaign until 2011-12 when we lost the games with Trinity in the semis. Gainsborough got 2 quick goals. The first leg was at North Home, which is Gainsborough's ground. He scored 2 early goals, and Gregory pegged them back, and he had a chance to score a hat-trick, but that's been a little bit greedy. And we hit a post at home in the home leg, and I think it was a little bit of a smash and grab from Gainsborough to win that game and go to the final. They did eventually lose to Nuneaton. You know, the year after was similar. We had problems with the pitch. We had to play 4 games in 8 days, but the difference was, I think we got ourselves in a position where we'd qualified for the playoffs in 5th when it was just 2nd to 5th played off. I don't think we could finish any higher, and we pretty much couldn't finish out of them. So Aspin could field a different team. I mean, we beat Guiseley, who will feel really, really aggrieved that year. They finished 19, 20 points ahead of us. But over those 2 games, we were the best team. And Brackley, you know, the win at Brackley to come up again, you know, come up the first time, I'd say we just about shaded that. I mean, the Salford playoffs were pretty close. Again, you know, it had to go to penalties, but I think we did just enough to win it. We hit a bar at Salford. I think they hit the bar at the Shea. Obviously, we both scored. We both pegged one another back. It went to penalties. Charlie, who didn't even finish in the playoffs, got to the final. You know, they beat Kidderminster. That was like a massive shock. But again, I feel beating them 2-1 was probably just about a fair result. Again, it was even Stevens. 1920 was a bit of an anomaly, but I mean, we all saw the game. We started quite well. Toby Shaw probably had his best game, you know, in a Halifax Town shirt, but Boreham Wood were just better on the day. And then, you know, we obviously Chesterfield were the better team, deserved to win it. I've missed the Cambridge game out. Cambridge were a little bit unlucky at the Shea, and we beat them 1-0 through a Lee Gregory penalty. But then in the return leg, they beat us 2-0, and they did deserve to beat us. I don't think we've ever really been that hard done by when we're in the playoffs. We tend to get what we deserve in playoffs, whether it's we haven't turned up and we're out, or we get what we deserve, basically. If we play well Wednesday, we'll get what we deserve. If we play badly, we're going to be out. Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine us getting absolutely battered. I mean, we haven't really been battered all season. No. I don't know if you count the Southend loss 3-0. I mean, that was probably the worst game that I've seen. But yeah, I think I agree. I think if we're going to lose, I think it'll be by 1 goal. You know, I don't think we're going to go down and lose 5-0 and it just being an absolute embarrassment. So yeah, we'll just see. I mean, they're going to be exhausted, but I think they'll give it their all. And yeah, we'll just see if we make it to Saturday. If we do have to trek down to Barnet again, when we played there, it was a very tight contest. So it's doable, is all I'm going to say. It's doable. We just have to be up for it on the day.
I think how I'm looking at it going into these playoffs is, in a way, taking it one game at a time. And obviously, so for example, we get through this and we're thinking, we get to have a trip to Barnet where we get to take another large following in the season's extended, which gives, you know, more of a focus for a longer period of time on the football. But then I think going into that Barnet game, I know it's hypothetical because we don't know if we're going to get through, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but if we got through to that Barnet game, my eyes would be on getting us to Wembley. And then obviously when we're at Wembley, it'll be about, you know, those stages, just everything. If that makes sense to you guys, I don't know if it does or not.
It does. Your eyes can literally be on Wembley at Barnet because you can see the arch from the away end. Because I looked at it when I went to Barnet 10 years ago. I said it on our show yesterday. And it obviously come at a time before we'd gone there, and I thought, will we ever get there?
Yeah.
And I mean, on the flip, Barnet, if they get knocked out on Saturday, they've got the cruel, not irony, but it's cruel that they can actually physically see Wembley and know that they're not going if they don't get there. I don't think Barnet have ever actually been to Wembley. They certainly haven't been to the new Wembley.
It's been, I think he said to me, the Barnet fan, I think he said it was like 62 years, something like that, since they were last at Wembley. But like I said, for me, it's taking it one game at a time for me when I'm going into this. I don't think at the moment, like, the Football League, it's literally there for us to get back into, because ever since I've been supporting them, that's always been what I've wanted, is to see Halifax get back to the Football League. But for me, I think going into these playoffs, I'm more thinking of another Wembley trip, or if that makes sense to you, I'm trying not to think about getting to the Football League, because of course that's what we're wanting to do. But I just think it's a long way off, particularly when we're in this position at the moment. Just my opinion.
Yeah,
I wonder
you
if
don't want to get
Solihull
too
have.
ahead of yourself.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself because it is the hope that kills you. But I think even just to be in this position now is something to celebrate, considering how kind of difficult it's been, sort of off the pitch, but technically on the pitch because it's the pitch that's meant that we've had to play all these
Yeah,
games in quick
yeah,
succession. Like, you know, we've played all of these games away from home, which, you know, you might argue that we actually do better when we're not at home. But, you know, that is going to be a disadvantage for any team that's in that position. But we've taken it in our stride and we've got to where we are. So I think the fact that we've managed to secure that playoff position, despite all of what we've had to go through, is a win in itself. So that's how I mean, obviously we want to win, don't we? But I think you have to look at what we've had to deal with to get here, and that is an achievement in itself. So even if we go to Solihull Moors tomorrow and we don't win and we're out and that's it for the season, I'll still be happy really with the fact that we even got there, because I just didn't think that was ever going to happen. Because when we had all those games to fit in, I thought, God, this is a big ask, but we did it. So there's that, and then what comes next will be a bonus if it's going to be good news.
I have to say, I think it was Barnet. I think no, after Ebbsfleet, I thought we'd blown it, especially when I saw that Aldershot beat Gateshead, because I just thought Oldham at home, they'll love to spoil that parade. And then also going to Eastleigh on the last game. I know we're good away from home, but it's the other side of the country to travel all that way. I just felt like we had to better Aldershot's result, and I just wasn't too confident going into that at all. But I think overall, whatever happens, why I'm a little bit more, I think, positive than I have been in previous campaigns is, for me, unless Millington leaves, which I don't think he should, I think we'll give him that opportunity to sign a new contract, which I think he does deserve, no matter what happens in these playoffs. I actually think the majority of the squad's going to stay together, unlike previous years. When we had Pete Wild, the first season, 3 or 4 players got uprooted and went, and they were key players. Second season, it was even worse. And that third season, literally 3/4 of the squad got torn apart, and the players who did remain didn't, I think, play to the best of their ability due to those players leaving as well. You know, we lost Waters, Green, a couple of centre halves in Mar and Bradbury, and they were as well. So I think what I think about this season, when I look through that squad, there aren't too many, I think, in a way, fashionable players compared to, I think, the actual squad plays well together more than they've been outstanding individuals. And if you think about it, Oliver Borey, I don't think, has done enough throughout the season for anyone to be looking at him. Max Wright hasn't either. I think, you know, there's no striker for me that I don't think Harker's someone that teams higher up would be looking at. Summerfield will be unlikely he'll leave due to his age, and he's been someone that's key ever since he's been with us. I think what will probably happen, no matter what, I think probably Golden might go, and then probably 1 or 2 of the centre halves, because we've been so good defensively. And maybe you'd stretch to Kane Thompson-Sommers, but there's no one that I can guarantee that's going to leave at the end of the season, where when we lost to Chesterfield and Wild left, you knew Waters were going to go, you knew Green were probably going to go, you knew Mar was likely to go. Where I think the future's bright this season, I think we'll keep the squad together going into next season. The majority of the squad together, I should say. So for me, overall, I'm fairly confident for the future of Halifax, and has been able to get back to the Football League, if that is this season or if that is in the future. I think we're getting closer and closer every season, in my opinion.
It's interesting
we'll have to have a
you say
national
that.
day of mourning when Sam Johnson leaves. We should literally declare a national day of mourning. Hopefully,
no, I don't want to think about it.
Hopefully, it'll be when he retires rather than him actually leaving for another club. You know, we'll have the statue erected. We'll be in the Football League. The pitch will have been sorted, and you know, hopefully, you know, I mean, if he gets to 400, there's no reason why he couldn't get to 500. It'd only be another 2 seasons, roughly, if he plays every game. I'm not sure what the contract situation is with Sam Johnson. I have a feeling he may already be signed up for next season. I know Hott is on a 3-year deal, so he'll have another 2. I think Stott and Golden are out of contract. Adam Senior, I think, might be
in contract, but I think someone will come in for him, in my opinion.
It's interesting what you say about Harker there, Luke, because after the Barnet game, we were up in the bar at Accrington's ground, and we were chatting with the Barnet manager, and he was saying to us, "Oh, I really like that Rob Harker," and we were all looking at each other like, is he having us on? Is he talking about the same Rob Harker that we've been watching all season? So, I mean, who knows? Barnet might swoop in for him.
Yeah. They've got Kabamba, to be fair, but no, if they lose him, I don't know. But I think the thing is about Harker for me, I think he does a job, and even if he doesn't score, he holds the ball well for me. I think overall he's a very good finisher. I think at times some might say he's a little bit lazy, you might say, where feel like he should be moving more. He's got his critics, and that's why he's playing at this level.
Chris Middleton's his biggest critic.
Yeah, but due to his injury record, for me, I think that's probably why he hasn't got into like double figures and been prolific for us, in my opinion. Even last season, I think he had the best shots on goal rate. I think minutes per goal. I think he had
minutes per goal, Luke did.
And he only scored like 5 goals. So I think for me...
No, he got 10. He scored 10, yeah. He's got 19 goals. Yeah, honestly, he's got 10.
Oh, blooming heck. Not this season or last season?
Last season with 10, he's got 9 this season.
Oh, I didn't understand.
He might have only got 7 in the league, though, I think, because he got 2 at Harrow, didn't he, in the FA Trophy. It's 10 in all competitions, 9 all competitions this year. And while we're on the subject of numbers, we've gained 15 points more away from home, which is obviously what we've talked about. We're quite strong at home. And this is maybe a little bit because we've played away from home, you could argue. But we've gained 5 points less at home this season. But obviously it's a 10-point swing. We've gained 10 more points than what we did last season, which
I put that down.
We lost out in the playoffs by 12 points last year, as crazy as that were last year.
I put that home form. I genuinely think I put that home form down to those games at Accrington and Chesterfield. For me, at the Shea, I think that Barnet game would have been a totally different game. The same with the Ebbsfleet game, and the same probably with the Oldham game to a certain extent, I'd say as well. Because I think overall, I don't think we're awful at home. If we were playing Solihull at home on Wednesday, I wouldn't be like, oh God, we've got a dodgy home form. I just think we didn't start the season too well at home. We weren't really a side suited at home. And I think as the season's gone on, we've got better. For example, winning against Chesterfield at home, for example. So for me, I think it's down to that game at Accrington and Chesterfield. I count those as away games, to be honest. I don't see them as home games, to be honest.
I haven't seen the numbers for the other playoff rivals, but I've got a feeling that they've got there on the back of very good home form. I don't think they're away teams.
Barnet have
they?
Barnet have
second, aren't they? So
home record. Bromley, I think, are like the 5th. Solihull are actually that good at home. They've got the 8th best home record in the division, which isn't very good considering their position. So that might be something interesting going into tomorrow. Altrincham, I think they're quite there as well due to their home form. But for me, I go in and, like I said, I'm fairly confident going into this game. And I don't understand why, but there's just something about this season where I just feel like with all the criticism Millington's got, when everyone's saying we're never in a false position, even our own fans saying that, for me it'd be so refreshing, I think, for him to basically prove everyone wrong. Even after winning the FA Trophy, people still weren't behind him, and to be honest, I think there's a section of the fan base that are probably still not behind him now. So for him to get into the Football League, for me, I think it just proved everyone wrong. And I think overall, although he's had his critics, and there's still things that I think, why have you done that in certain games? I think overall, he's done a very, very good job. And I'd say an equally at the moment, if not better job than what Wild did, because he's actually won a trophy. He's got us in a playoff campaign as well. So for me, I think Millington, I think he's probably goes down as one of the greatest managers we've had, and people might exaggerate overall because of they won't put him in the same category as Neil Aspin, George Mullall. But I think what he's done, he's the second manager to win at Wembley. He's got us in a playoff campaign, and he's only had 2 seasons. The last 2 seasons we've had something to play for, and that says a lot about where Halifax is going at the moment. Our seasons aren't fizzling out like they once were, which is good.
Yeah, I think Chris Middleton, whether with us or not, will totally have a future in football. Like, I don't think he's going to be like, I don't know, a Darren Kelly or whoever, where I know he was still involved at York and he was manager at Hyde and Scarborough, but, he hasn't, kicked on. And I think Pete Wild will, but like you say, arguably Millington's had a better 2 years at this club than what Pete Wild did. I know Pete Wild had us in 2 out of 3 were playoff campaigns, and we missed out. But we missed out on one. Yeah, I think Chris Millington's done a better job. Should we go up? I think he could arguably go level with George Mullall in terms of, I don't want to say miracle. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, I'd say I'd say it's fairly equal. I mean, we nearly went down the year before we won it in 97, 98, and I'm just about old enough to remember it. Thank God, what a season that were. Honestly, there's a reason that supporters still use it as like a benchmark of success or where we are as a team. I'd argue this. I mean, it's not as if we nearly got relegated last year and then we're going to go on and win the title this year. But I'd say this is almost as much of a success story as what that were. But yeah, as you say, we're doing really, really well. Obviously, we're there. We deserve to be there, and just the best of luck to us, really.
Yeah.
Not that I don't think we'll need it. Honestly, I think we tend to get what we deserve. I don't think we really need luck, and that's not being big-headed. I think we will make our own luck, I think is what I'm looking to say. Yeah, I mean, have we got anything else really to discuss? I mean, possibly Solihull. The only thing we haven't really said is Solihull are already at Wembley, but I can't imagine them being an FA Trophy final will detract from their preparations for our game tomorrow. Because I mean, when we played Grimsby in 2016, they went to Wembley, won the playoffs. Arguably their more important game of the two, but still went to Wembley anyway. I think Bromley have maybe had a playoff campaign when they got to Wembley in the trophy. I don't think it'll detract from it, but I mean, Gateshead still have that at the end of the season. They've got to Wembley twice now in 2 years, which is quite an achievement. But no, do you think that it'll detract from the game tomorrow? I don't, to be honest, for Solihull.
No, I think they'll just be focusing on what's next.
Right,
I think you don't think too far ahead. You've got to play the game that's in front of you. So yeah, I think they'll be focusing on tomorrow as far as tomorrow's concerned. It's a lot of pressure on them, but I suppose in a way, if they aren't successful in beating us tomorrow, at least they've got that. Their season's not going to be a kind of damp squib at the end of all of this. So at least they've got a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Whereas for us, it's like this is all we're playing for. So I don't know. There might be a little bit less pressure for them, I guess, maybe because they've already got something else to come. But yeah, no, I don't think they'll really be thinking too far ahead.
Yeah,
have you both got tickets for tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yes, my dad got them yesterday, so we shall be there.
I mean, when I went down to get. Unfortunately, I had to get an Oldham refund yesterday because I just couldn't make the game. I could make the original game. I think I could make the rearranged game, but once it had been rearranged again and again, I just couldn't make it. And there were a fair queue for people. It opened at 2:00 and started doing stuff in reception at 2:00, and there must have been at least maybe 50 to 70 people in the queue when we got there. And when we left 15 minutes later after we'd been served, there were still 50 to 70. Nobody really knows how many tickets we've sold, but I mean, we've been given an allocation of 1,200, and I think it'll be closer to 1,200 than it'll be closer to maybe 400. I think we'll take a good 700 or 800 down there. I think we'll maybe surprise a few people. Some people thought we might only take a couple of hundred. I think we'll take a pretty good allocation down there.
Yeah, I think the subsidised coaches as well that the club have
that's really helped. Yeah,
quid will definitely help. Although it was announced very late, wasn't it? I mean, because we're booked on with the Royal Oak, which we paid 30 quid for. But you got to make your plans, haven't you? You can't be waiting until like 2 days.
That's what we did for the Chesterfield game. Well, not the Chesterfield game. The game.
Oh, is he frozen?
I don't know. I think he might have done, to be honest. Oh no, he's back. He's back.
Yeah, sorry, I did notice there was an issue then. I just carried on talking in case it carried on. We did the same. I booked my dad and his friend on the coach to Oldham at Chesterfield for the same reason. And then once we'd booked on it, it was like, we're putting a free coach on. We may have not. I think they only put one coach on. We may have missed out anyway, but we did it safety first. We made sure we could get to the match. But I mean, the club, people like to beat the club with a stick over, like, they don't seem that organised, they don't do this, they don't do that. But the amount of stuff they'll have had to have organised over this last, 7 or 8 weeks, you can't really envy them just putting stuff on late, It's better late than never, I guess.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say about the club is sometimes, like, you don't actually know what's happening behind the scenes. It's a very small team behind the scenes at Halifax, and people don't, I think, realise that. Also, the way Bosworth works, and he said it since the start, since we've reformed, to be honest, he wants the club to be self-sufficient, which means he don't want to be putting in money into the club if he can't make that back. So that basically means the attendances we get is based on how he operates and how much money he spends. Because I know there's questions, isn't there, about the match day experience, but I think a lot of that goes down to Calderdale, who we'll try not to discuss because of how they've screwed us over. But for me, I personally think the club do a magnificent job, and there are things that I personally think that maybe they should do that, maybe they shouldn't. But for me, I just think people don't understand how much of a small team it actually is. And I think what we've done on the footballing side and what we are doing on the footballing side, considering even our attendances, to be honest, I think we're doing magnificent, to be honest, overall for me. And I think a lot of credit has to go to Bosworth. I know people will criticise him because he don't particularly come out and speak to the fans often, but I think overall, I think the club deserve a lot of credit for what they've done since we've reformed, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if you just split it into simple terms of investing more into on-field or off-field, we're certainly doing it the right way around, put it that way. I'd certainly have a more successful... I'd rather have a team win the league in front of 500 people than be a bit like York are at the minute, where they're just staying up but getting 5,000. I mean, it will click for York. York will be fine. But do you see what I mean? Like, I'd rather we play in front of 500 and win every week than struggle, but we get 5,000 at home. It'd just be like, it's a bit like Bradford. Like, Bradford are sort of getting their act together a bit now. Obviously, there's somebody I know a lot about because it's the West Yorkshire Football Show. Play in front of X amount of thousands, but the team's sometimes just not that good. And it doesn't matter that they've got a crowd behind them, because teams figure out that they're not that good on the field and that they're beatable or that you can get at them. It doesn't really count for a lot. It does at our level, because obviously the people coming through the door are what fund the club, and people would say, well, if you sort off the field out, it'll help there, and then it'll snowball. But if Bosworth's obviously a very conservative guy. One thing we haven't touched on, obviously, is he's not well at the minute. He's not at games. Something's happened to him. There's rumours that he had a fall and he broken his leg, and then he had a blood clot. He's not doing too well. He already runs a tight ship, and it's going to be even tighter if he can't physically attend certain things. I think he was spotted at the Shea a few weeks ago. I think there was a meeting between the rugby, the football, and the council. Some people said they'd seen him at the Shea. We must literally just have people that watch the ground 24 hours a day to know this kind of thing. But yeah, apparently he was in attendance. Obviously didn't look too good on his feet, but he's what, in his mid to late 60s. He's easily been the longest serving chairman in the modern times, in over 100 years. I mean, you're talking about maybe people were involved when the club first set up, like 100 and odd years ago. That he's easily the longest serving chairman, owner, director, whatever you want to label him as, this club's ever had. And one way or the other, he's probably going to have to hand over the reins at some point. I think he's done there's certainly things he could have done a little bit better, but I think hindsight is always 20/20. Hindsight's always right. Once stuff's happened after the event, you can look back and go, well, we could have done this, we could have done that. End of the day, we set up first season, we finished 9th, we were top, but unlike Macclesfield and Chester, who reformed, who had like 6 months to do it, or knew they had that period, we had to rush through the summer, make sure we could play at the Shea, make sure we could field a team, jump through all the hoops the FA needed, make sure we could compete in the FA Cup. The season after, we got Neil Aspin, and he brought half the Harrogate team with him, and we got up to where we were at the beginning, and then we made the playoffs in the first season, which is insane. And then we nearly did it the year after. All right, we got relegated the season after that, but we come straight back up. We had Wembley. This is the best period ever, I think, to support Halifax Town, other than us winning, well, not winning, getting promoted up to the third division in 1969. This is arguably the most successful period this club's ever had. And we've just got to hope we get back to the Football League while we're in that period where we're sort of not riding a crest of a wave, but times are good. We do seem to have a habit of winning the big games. You know, we've won 2 Wembley games already. We haven't conceded a goal. We've won the playoff final at home to Chorley. We've won at Brackley away. You know, we seem to turn up when we need it, when we need to the most. And I think that puts us in really good stead.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. I think we've said everything we need to say. We've done 71 minutes. I think we've covered everything we needed to cover. So, Luke, where will we find you at?
Well, I'm on Twitter or X, whatever it's called. Luke Walsh FCHT, I think's me handle. But Luke Walsh Football Podcast. Also, you can find me on YouTube, Luke Walsh Football Podcast. I do like weekly shows covering the whole of the Vanarama National League. Also bonus videos as well, predictions, bring different guests on. I've even done vlogs in the past. So yeah, just everything to do with like lower leagues. You know, I'm the man in a way. So yeah, go find me on YouTube.
Also BBC Radio Leeds.
Yeah.
Don't forget that as well. You seem to be our like little town correspondent at the minute on there. Yeah, and Sammy, where can we find you?
Yeah, so if you want to listen to mine and Matthew's podcast, we're Talk of the Town, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, possibly SoundCloud as well, if that's your jam. We also write long-form content on Substack, which is a platform that gets sent into your email inbox. So match reports, things like that. So that's talkofthetown1.substack.com. And then we're also on Twitter and Instagram as well at Talk Town Pod, and that's where we post things like goal of the month, player of the month. So we'll be doing our goal and player of the season very soon, so make sure you get involved in all of that.
How many of them are Rob Harker goals? I can already think of 2 that should be on there.
Well, he's actually won the most goal of the month.
Yeah.
I mean, the one at Oldham back at the start of the season is definitely up there for me. But apparently, people think that was a cross. So does that count? I don't know.
From the middle of the pitch.
Yeah.
From 35 yards out.
Our friend Dave clearly has a vendetta against Rob Parker.
This is the Dave that I know as well, I think, and yeah, he really is a funny guy. So yeah, I would take that with a pinch of salt. I think you need to put that in the "Are Barnet really interested in Rob Harker" section, because it was definitely not a cross. It absolutely wasn't. Yeah, thanks guys. Obviously, we'll invite you on again soon. You know where to find me. I'm obviously on the West Yorkshire Football Show. I'm at HX4Boy1988, or I think you could probably just search Halifax Town and I'll probably just show up at something. I'm sure we all would. If you're into it, obviously, if you're onto social media, we're not that hard to find as organisations, as individuals, as journalists, as people with opinions. We're quite easy to find. And yeah, all the best to us in these playoffs. That's all I can really say. Up the town.
Yeah. Best luck for tomorrow.
All the best, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
See you later.